India's history is defined by a sharp contradiction. For millennia, the culture has worshipped the divine feminine as the ultimate creator of the cosmos. Yet, on the ground, the systems governing daily life strictly institutionalized the subjugation of mortal women. Popular nationalist history often points to a golden age during the early Vedic period. In this telling, upper-caste women enjoyed high status, writing philosophy, participating in religious rituals, and holding significant social autonomy. Modern subaltern historians reveal a massive blind spot in that narrative. That specific version of the past was an exclusive reality for a small elite, and it deliberately ignores the rigid social hierarchy of the caste system. The philosophical freedom of those upper-caste scholars was entirely subsidized by the erased, intense manual labor of marginalized groups. These women were relegated to the role of servants, their labor exploited, and their stories scrubbed from the emancipatory record. Any historical analysis of Indian feminism falls flat if it ignores this intersection. You cannot accurately measure liberation without first identifying whose labor made that freedom possible. To find the true origin of this institutional patriarchy, we have to look past religious doctrine and toward economics, specifically the shift from nomadic pastoral tribes to settled agriculture. In a pastoral society, resources are generally communal, but settled agriculture produces surplus wealth. Suddenly, people held massive stores of grain and bounded plots of land, creating the concept of private property. Once you have valuable land, you want to pass it down to your biological heirs. That requires patrilineal succession, and if inheritance strictly follows the male bloodline, absolute certainty of paternity becomes an economic necessity. The strict surveillance and control of female sexuality didn't begin as a divine mandate. It was born out of the cold economic calculus of securing inherited wealth. This economic requirement fused with social stratification to create Brahmanical Patriarchy. The rigid, hereditary caste system could only survive if the bloodlines between different castes remained absolutely pure. Because women possess reproductive capabilities, they were structurally positioned as the literal gateways to the caste system. Control the gateway, and you control the demographic continuation of the entire social order. Ancient socio-legal texts like the Manusmriti codified this control. They established complex marriage rules, ensuring social status could only flow downwards. If a lower caste man attempted to marry an upper caste woman, the legal codes demanded violent punishments to prevent upward mobility. This created a claustrophobic pedestal for upper caste women. To guarantee pure progeny, they were subjected to child marriage, strict domesticity, and extreme spatial seclusion. Meanwhile, lower caste women faced a different reality. Because their agricultural labor was necessary for survival, they weren't secluded in the home. But this physical mobility exposed them to severe economic exploitation and sexual violence from upper caste men with near absolute impunity. These ancient legal codes weaponized the female body as the primary tool to violently enforce and maintain the supremacy of the upper castes. Looking outside of India, we see that utilizing women's bodies to signal elite social status is a global historical pattern. Take the practice of Chinese footbinding. By intentionally crippling young girls, elite families demonstrated they were wealthy enough to afford wives and daughters who were physically incapable of manual labor. In India, a similar logic drives a sociological process called Sanskritisation. When a lower caste family acquires wealth and attempts to move up the social ladder, they often impose strict seclusion and child marriage on their own women to mimic the habits of the elite. In highly stratified societies, achieving social dignity carries a horrific price tag, the deliberate sacrifice of female autonomy. Throughout this history, female agency was never willingly granted by the elite. It was seized from the margins. During the medieval period, women saints in the Bhakti movement subverted the entire patriarchal structure. By claiming a direct, intense spiritual connection with the divine, they bypassed the authority of earthly husbands and male priesthoods. Further challenging the norm, the matrilineal Kasi tribe in northeast India passed property and descent exclusively through the female line, proving that violent patriarchy was never a biological inevitability. By the 20th century, thinkers like the Fules and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar identified the inextricable link between gender and caste, arguing that women's liberation is structurally impossible without the total annihilation of the caste system. History's most effective feminist resistance didn't ask for equal inclusion in a corrupt system. It attacked the foundational logic of the system itself. Today, India's constitution guarantees legal equality, and the country is rapidly integrating into the global economy. But we have to ask if we dismantled those ancient structures or just updated their software. Labor economists point out that the modern gig economy actively repackages these old hierarchies. The flexibility of platform labor often traps women into a grueling double burden, clustering them in precarious work so they can still fulfill the traditional expectation of unpaid domestic caregiving. And the intersection of caste and gender remains devastating. Dalit women continue to face severe double discrimination, frequently locked out of tech capital and forced into the most vulnerable sectors of this new economy. The Indian woman is not a monolith. True liberation requires dismantling the structures that condition human worth upon birth, rather than simply assimilating into a digitized caste system. If you want to uncover more of the hidden